The Healing Half. My name is Mickey Spear. I am an author, musician, and talk show host. And today, you guys, we are going to be going into the losses of vision loss, as well as 3 things that you can do to help make sure your holiday gatherings, which I'm sure are right around the corner, are griever friendly. But before we dive into any of that, if you are watching it live or as a replay, please just let me know in the comments whether you're watching live on YouTube or as a replay, live on Facebook or on YouTube as a replay. I would love to know that you are listening wherever you're calling in from. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mickey Spear. I lost my mom to cancer when I was 13 years old, and I spent the better part of a decade pretending I was fine and keeping people at an arm's length away. And eventually, as I'm sure you can imagine, that all crumbled, and I could no longer sustain the lie, and I finally had to go through my grief. But I tell you what, you guys, it is scary to finally lean into those hard emotions. So after lots of counseling and lots of support and lots of research, I wanted to create something that helped facilitate others leaning into hard emotions, be it grief or other losses. But also, I didn't want to stop quite there, because I know I still get very awkward when I am around somebody and I don't know what to say after they're going through something hard. So I also wanted to incorporate that into the show, as well as how can we be better community members for those people that we love. And of course, with the holidays right around the corner, this is ever present. So we are going to get to my wonderful guest, Brad, and his interview here in just a moment. But before anything else, let's quickly talk about how you can help your upcoming holiday gatherings be more griever friendly. First, I just wanted to share this little thing. It's called Access, Preference, and Exit Plan. APE for short. And I came up with it. And actually, it's the main message of my podcast trailer that is launching tomorrow. It's like we are within inches, you guys, of the show finally taking off on the podcast platform. And that's actually what's transitioning. This live show is going away. I'm so sad. It's very bittersweet. And it's going to be picking up with a podcast. And that should be around February is when that begins. So the trailer is going to sustain us for a little while. So I just want to let you know, if you're on my email list, you will get this delivered right into your inbox. And if you're not on my email list, simply jump on over mickyspear.com, and I'll make sure the podcast on all its platforms that it's available on is right in your inbox. So that way you can listen to the trailer and then pass it along. But the main message of that podcast trailer, it's about 10 minutes long, is that you and I both will be at some point in our life either the grieving person at a party or family gathering, or we will be hosting or be a fellow guest and someone else is that person. And so here's 3 things that we can keep in mind to make our parties more griever friendly. And again, this is the essence of the podcast. So I'm just going to quickly buzz through it, and then you can listen to that podcast later and actually hear more details. And if you are going to listen to that podcast, shameless plug, please subscribe and leave a review. The whole point of having a couple weeks for the trailer is to get some excitement around it. So stay tuned. Make sure you're on my email list, because that is like, we are so close. I was hoping to be ready before tonight. But that's okay. You can't control the IT universe, right? So we're just going to be happy whenever it is officially ready. So 3 things that can absolutely help. And if you are listening and you have anything that you would like to add, please put it in the comment section so we all can read it and be like, oh, I'm glad to know like that was helpful for that person. So assess. And I think I spelled that wrong. I'm not sure. I'm so bad at spelling, you guys. I meant assess, not access. So step 1, who is potentially grieving? And if you've been watching my show for a while, you know that there's a lot of different types of grief out there. So it's important to be aware of it. And of course, the main essence is going to be heavy and really deep death losses, but it could also be someone who's going through a divorce or something else that could be causing grief. So it's important just to ask who's going to be at a gathering, be it family or friends, that might be going through a hard time. Then the second is just to reach out to them and say, hey, we're going to be at this party together. Do you want us to talk to you about it? Some people are going to say, yes, please talk to me. Let's do a candle lighting ceremony. And then you can kind of take it from there. And other people are going to be like, I'd rather not. Like, I'd rather just keep it light that night. And that's okay. And once you find that out, then you can pass that along to the host or other members as well. And of course, all of this, you can tell the griever, hey, you are allowed to change your mind. You don't have to stick to this plan. But also with preferences, what I wanted to lump into that is part of that is for an opportunity for you to be able to reach out and say, hey, by the way, I was listening to my friend Mickey Spear, and she told me that the more you can process before a party, the more enjoyable the party might be for you. And she's hosting an event, coincidentally, on Tuesday, the 21st, and you should join her. So we're going to talk about that event in a second. But also, all these can kind of be applied back to yourself if you are grieving. So again, acknowledge who is grieving. Then the second is, what are your preferences? And then if you are a griever, kind of go through that healing process ahead of time. And then the last step that I would encourage you to work out with them and the host, it's important that all parties are on the same page, is what we call an exit plan, which is simply telling them you don't have to come. And if you do come, it's okay if you leave early. Take that pressure off of them to have to be the center, anything. Like, don't make them host, don't make them provide like the main meal. Give them light, easy tasks and say, hey, whatever you're feeling that day, just go where the spirit leads. We are not going to be mad one way or the other. And that just gives them so much freedom and so much permission. And then from there, though, if they do show up, it's important that you have what I like to call an exit plan. And this is actually inspired by my mother-in-law, Tammy. So Tammy, hello. It is so good to see you. Where she told me about this, and I just thought it was such a great idea. If you are a host or you are helping coordinate with the host and this person, just simply say, where could this person sneak off to if things start to get emotional? Because when you are in the holidays and it is heavy and you are missing your person and everyone else is having a grand old time, it's insulting, but you're not mad at them, but it's so hard, and it hits you all at once. And even though we want to believe, of course, that people at the party would be supportive and let us cry, we don't always want to cry in front of other people. We don't always want to have the focus on us. Grief is vulnerable. So if you have a place that you can tell them ahead of time is set aside for them, oh my gosh, exit plan is great. You could say, hey, we've got the laundry room. I'm going to make sure that that's kind of blocked up. We've got a guest room upstairs. Why don't you sneak up there? And if you are hosting, one really great extra thing you could do is just leave a little treat for that person in that room, or a little note, or a box of Kleenexes. It really does make a huge difference. So then you tell the host, you tell the griever, make sure everyone's on the same page, and you kind of, again, follow that up with that griever and say, you know what? We hope you come. We really do. But we just want you to know that if you show up, there's some things in place that can make it more comfortable for you. And of course, if you decide day of that you just aren't in the mood, that's okay too. And then the last thing that I'll do, kind of a shameless plug here. Here's my cardinal memory cards. I'm not sure if the words are coming in. Oh gosh, heavens, look at that. I'm not sure if it's flipped for you guys or not. But they're memory cards that you can share with that person. And what I love about cards is that they can open them in their own time. And so if you want to just hand them a card, if they're kind of have told you earlier, their preference is more, they just want to keep it light, you can hand them a card and say, hey, open this at home. And then you can, if you have a memory or an essence of a person, write it down for them to be able to save. So that's just what I wanted to talk about, you guys. We do have a big holiday healing for the holidays coming up next week, which is my last show. And in the comments, I did put a link. There's a free PDF. So if you want to print it off ahead of time, you can come ready to healing for the holidays with that ready to go. And then I'm going to walk through the program, but you could also just show up with a pen and paper too. It doesn't matter. But please, please, please invite your friends. You guys, this is my last show. I'm really excited. For this, again, this candle lighting ceremony, this kind of a quick 2 healing question thing. And I just can't wait to spread the word. So without further ado, please join me next week. Share that Facebook invite. It's in the comments right now. And I really just hope if you can join or watch as a replay, that it is kind of my last gift for a while to folks. And I'm really, really excited to be able to do that. And I hope that it is healing, whether you lost someone you loved 2 weeks ago or 20 years ago. My hope is that it gives us time to honor those losses. So again, invite your friends, download the PDF. It's free right on my website's front page. So be sure to check that out. Okay, so my guest Brad tonight is blind, and we actually did our interview before this point, there was some tech issues and timing issues. So I'm actually going to play it. I was able to record it early. We're going to play it, and then I'm going to come back. This is live right now. I'm going to come back afterwards and kind of just recap it a little bit. So here's to hoping my technology works, and I will see you in just a minute. So we're going to share Brad's interview. And again, here's to hoping this works. That said, let's jump on into my wonderful guest here. I don't want to make Brad sit all day by himself. So, Brad, thank you so very much for being here. Do you mind just introducing yourself and kind of giving your story leading up to vision loss?
Okay, sure. My name's Brad Dunse, and I live in the Minneapolis area. Actually, it's in Wisconsin, but we're still part of the Metro Twin Cities area. So, yeah, I have vision loss that's due to retinitis pigmentosa. When I grew up as just a normal kid, just riding bikes and all that kind of stuff, and I we had it in our family because it's a genetic thing, So although it wasn't focused on, I mean, I knew I had, I think some people in our family that had it, and they had, had blindness and stuff, and I just never really thought it'd ever be a problem, or I never thought much of it. But
Right.
it's kind of one of those things. I back up, I guess, a little bit. I grew up in a family roofing business, so early on, I started in that business when I was like 13 years old, helping my dad. So, and then by the time I was 15, I was like, "Hey, how do you do these estimates?" So I was kind of being groomed to take over the business, And by the time I was in my mid 20s, I mean, I was bidding on against contractors that were in business longer than I'd been alive, and I was competing with them. And so, I mean, I was kind of set to take over this roofing business, and I guess when I look back at things, it was I had done uh, other things too. I mean, for a while, I think there was a time in there when I was young and I was kind of looking at other things I could do, and I thought I was gonna. I actually thought I was going to do like truck driving, right? So my father-in-law was into trucking, so I thought, maybe I'd do that, So that's kind of when I found out I had vision problems. It's kind of one of those things where they call it the boiled frog, and I don't want to get anybody mad at me about the cruelty to animals or anything. It's just an expression, but the boiled frog is like you put a frog in a boiling pot of water, it's going to jump right out. If you put it in and then turn it in a cold pot and heat it up, it doesn't even know that anything's happening until it's almost too late. And that's kind of what retinitis pigmentosa can do, because it's so gradual. It's just tunnel vision's in, and it affects your night vision and stuff like that. So prior to that, I just didn't have a notice a lot until one day I was driving a truck, 18-wheeler down the road and at night, and I was pulling off on a ramp, and that particular area, there was nobody in front, no lights in front, no street lights, no lines on the road, and it was a ramp, and all of a sudden the truck started to just bounce all around, and I thought, uh-oh, you know, I'm
Oh,
not on the road anymore, or something's happened. So, and it all happens just in a split second like that. So you got to do something. So I just whipped the wheel to the right, and luckily that's the way the road was going. And so, but it just got to a point, where it was in a situation where I just couldn't. It was just the right situation with the vision where I just couldn't tell, and and it's kind of one of those things too. I had a young family, and you have the pressures of keeping the family fed, and so there's and a young guy and all this stuff. So there's a lot of pressure on it. So you just kind of do things that you maybe normally wouldn't do, or even maybe know you should be doing. And so that kind of brought it up to where I kind of knew, that I definitely had a problem with.
yeah.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you were kind of like, okay, I have something I need to check into?
Yeah, I was 26. So,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, I was 26. We had just bought a house and bought a new car and things, and it's like, and my wife, well, my wife, she was just flabbergasted because she, it wasn't that I was being deceptive of any way. It's just I was just so used to of getting by on what vision. Like I said, it's a boiled frog. You adjust as you go, and you accommodate things, and and there's probably a little fakery in there too, because I mean nobody wants to like, oh, I don't want to admit I'm having vision issues, or and then you have the pressure of like, what if what kind of panic does that cause? Or you don't think about these things consciously, really. You kind of really don't. And so
Right.
when the doctor said, dude, you're blind, I had like less than 10% field of vision in both eyes. So as far as accurate, acuity. But so she was like, she just didn't know. She was kind of beside herself, But luckily,
Mm.
she's hung with me all these years, and
Oh,
we
good.
worked it all out. And everybody has their things to deal with in life, and so that was kind of mine. So yeah. Well,
Wow.
I'm sure I have more that.
Perfect,
Yeah.
except for what? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I'm perfect except for that. That's right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am so grateful for you to be able to jump on and talk about this because, again, when we think about grief, which is the whole reason this show exists, it's so immediately everyone's gut reaction
Mm-hmm.
is death loss. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the more I'm on the show, the more I'm like, wow, there's a lot of things we grieve that are not death related. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad that you mentioned something to me. For those of you listening, Brad and I are both
Mm-hmm.
songwriters, and we met at a songwriting group. So that's how we got to know each other. And somehow we were talking over the Zoom, and he kind of threw his hat in the ring. And I was like, I'll take you up on being on my show. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely. So,
Yeah.
so Brad, thank you so much for being on here to talk about this grief that
Mm-hmm.
happens. And I love that you mentioned your wife too, because
Mm-hmm.
we'll touch into that because I'm sure that's
Mm-hmm.
hard for her to have had to be like, oh, this was not the life I was expecting.
Right. Right.
So, do you think we can maybe pick up the story there? You're getting this diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
and the boiled frog was an amazing analogy. So, thank you for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You're told you've got 10%
Mm-hmm.
vision, which
Yeah.
is scary to think, how far, like you said, how the water just kind of boiled up to that point where you were
Mm-hmm.
relatively functional with 10% vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did it feel to get that like that official, like your life is going to be changed diagnosis?
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure listeners are probably thinking, "Wow, man, if he's only got 10%, didn't he know that?" Well, what's weird about, and this kind of comes into play with RP. Um, RP is called retinitis pigmentosa, and it's a tunnel vision, so it kind of gradually narrows in. But it's not as though it's like you're looking through a straw and it's dark and you only see this little circle. It's not that at all. It's you still kind of. I mean, I could look at a wall that has, like, say, like paneling on, and there could be a clock in the middle of that wall, but that clock might be in like a dead spot. But my brain fills in that there's a paneling there. I just don't see the clock. It's just weird. It's weird. That's how I would notice things when I was driving. I'd look left, I'd look right, and all of a sudden, a car would go by. It's like, oh, I saw nothing but a highway there. But that's the kind of things that can happen. Um, so yeah, when I found out about it, I guess it was, the realities of what you know, I knew was in our family kind of came tumbling out, and it's like I didn't really think about that so much. It's just I basically just climbed in a room for 6 months and didn't come out unless if I ate, went to the bathroom, or slept, and that's
Mm.
how I dealt with my grief. Grief to start off was like it was just a major bummer for me, and it was like and I we talk about, and you and I met through the songwriting thing, and I've always played guitar, but that's when I started actually doing songwriting. Is at that point, so that was actually um, one of the things that really helped me deal with the grief, and it's just
Yeah.
turning to my guitar. My wife used to call it the other woman in my life. So, uh, but I would play guitar, and I'd do some writing, songwriting as much as I could at the time. But we got our first computer at that point. Geez, it was Windows 3.1, and I could still read the screen and all that. I wasn't using a screen reader at that point, and that was like 1990. And so I just kind of, like I said, I kind of cocooned as what it was my first initial reaction to that, and there were times along in there, and if that's. it's interesting that we're talking about grief because with RP, there's opportunity for grief all along the path. There's a long kind of I won't say debate, but there's this thing amongst blind folks is like, are you better off to lose it over time and kind of have what you have and kind of enjoy what you have, or are you better off to just it's gone, and it's like, and then deal with it and you're done, kind of a thing. And it, I don't know if there's anyone that's one or the other, but with RP, I found that there's a lot of opportunity for grief. I mean, it's like, okay, I couldn't drive anymore, so that to me was huge. I mean, I mean, I've adjusted very well through the years, but I still miss being able to just hop in the car, go grab a gallon of milk because we needed one and go bring it home. Just something simple as that. Yes, I could take an Uber and go and do all on my own. I can still do that, but it's still not the same. So I have, there was that was the first thing. And then, so, my mode of transportation then was I got myself a mountain bike, and the kids and I, we'd ride around here, ride around there, whatever. And that was, I really enjoyed just biking. Just biking is really good. I was really healthy and it was good, good energy and stuff like that until, there's a day where I really couldn't do that anymore. And so I remember one time specifically, it really hit me. It's like my wife and I, we used to, when we were dating, we used to go out and play racquetball. And so I said, well, you know what, let's go do some racquetball. It's like, okay. And I'm not even sure what made me think I could do it. I guess I just thought I could.
Yeah.
So, but we got in our thing, and she boom, popped the ball, and it just, whizzed by, and I just couldn't see it. I just couldn't follow the ball anymore. Even though I still had some center vision, I still just couldn't follow. If I got out of that center vision, I couldn't follow it. And so I just stood there, and it was just like someone just ripped the heart out of me, and it's just like it's just another thing I can't do. So there's another, so there's always this opportunity. So I got really good at being able to, oh, okay, that's something I can't do, and okay, that's something I can't do. Until later on in life, when I'd gone, and that's what brought me out to Minneapolis areas. I went through a thing called Blindness Learning in New Dimensions, which is Blind Incorporated, which is Adjustment to Blindness Training Center. It's run by the National Federation of the Blind, and I went there. I could still had, like I say, still had some center vision. I didn't need a cane or anything like that at the point, but I knew it was coming down the road, and I thought, you know what, I'm the type of guy that is. I like to have control over things. I don't like things being done to me, which is probably the reason why this hit me a little hard, But I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go to that now before I need it, and so that I have an edge up on. So I at least have that kind of control over what's going on, and so which was important to me. So I did that, but through there I found out that I can do things. It's just I haven't do them differently, but I can still do a lot of things. I mean, there's people. I mean, there's blind folks that will I don't know, just about anything. Skateboard people. There's people that bike ride. I don't know how they do it. Yeah, I'm not going to be the one. That's not something for me. There's mountain climbers. There's Eric Wine. Can't remember his last name now. Not Weinberg, but anyhow, he climbed Mount Everest. With a crew, and it's. You can do anything. You can do anything that you kind of really want to put your mind to doing, where it even might seem impossible. But so that's once you get past the grief, though. So in my case, and I know there's a lot of different types of grief. There's things that you can do that you just never, thought you could do. You just have to do them differently. You have to find alternative ways of doing things. So yeah, I think that's probably it. It's just not stay in that grief, but just know that there's a better day. It's just a matter of trying to figure out what that is. And I know when you're in that spot, you really don't feel like doing anything about it. It's kind of like I compare it a lot. So it's like if you remember when you were a kid and you had your baby teeth, right? And you could say, hey, when them little suckers is kind of loose in there, it kind of hurts a little bit, right? So so what do? You wiggle on it, you push it, kind of, to quote John Cougar Mellencamp, it hurts so good, right? You just kind of twist that baby and out it comes, but we do it because it feels good. So we kind of sometimes punish ourselves, I think, because it sort of hurts so good. It's kind of like we owe it to ourselves to just, I don't know, because you just don't know what else to do. And so that's kind of what it can be at times. It's like you just don't want to get out of that spot because probably you're scared of what that means next, and it's sort of, even though what you're experiencing is not good, it's still more comfortable than going out and into the big brand new world and as somebody different or somehow different. I mean, I always look at myself as having almost two lives really, because it's you know uh, with sight and without sight. It's just,
Yeah.
and I don't mean, and I don't by any means want to portray that because with loss of sight that oh, life's over. It's not. I mean, because we're going to get into. I think you asked one of your questions that you had wondered about is how has it changed in my life, and so we'll get into that. But it kind of, it just doesn't end there. There's a better day. There's always something. Humans are so resilient. I mean, there could be somebody in a wheelchair, and I'm tapping along on my cane, and that guy's probably thinking, "Wow, when I thought I had it bad, look at that guy." And I'm walking by and saying, "Oh, there's a guy in a wheelchair. I thought I had it bad. Oh, I'm glad I'm not in his shoes." So there's always somebody you think that's got it worse than you, and I don't know if there's ever a guy that's got it so bad that there's nobody worse than him. But there's always something you do. I know a writer that he's the number one blogger on the globe. He's just phenomenally successful, and all he can move is his mouth and his eyeballs, and that's it. He can't move his arms. He's a paraplegic, and that's
Oh,
he's been
wow.
that way but he writes awesome. I mean, he's an awesome business guy, and does he want to be in that spot? Well, probably not. But is he making the best of it? Absolutely. Is he enjoying himself? Absolutely. He's a motivational speaker, and he's kind of don't make it. A quick little story on that. I had a friend of mine that was in the Blind Incorporated thing at the same time as I was, and we became friends. And his story was, yeah, he was diabetic, and so that's a very common disease today that unfortunately does affect people's vision and things. But um, he said, yeah, he says, when I got here, he says, my wife brought me up here. He says, and she dropped off my bags. He says, oh, by the way, I want a divorce because I don't want to be married to a blind guy.
Mm.
And that was like so that to me was like, ouch. And two things happened. It's like, man, back to that, geez, I hate to be in, feel sorry for him, but it made me also realize how grateful I was for my wife that, that she had an opportunity, I guess, to, with support, I guess I'll just put it that she could have, uh, bowed out of that situation, and she did not. And that was just huge. It's just huge. So all that to say is that but my buddy there, I mean, he got remarried, and he worked as kind of engineer and
Yeah.
stuff. So I mean, life does go on. And with me, I'm a Christian guy, so it's all things you can do all things through Christ. So it's just having that, I think, is an important thing. Um, but I think what really may have been a hindrance to me to not move forward was like people are going to see me differently now. It's like, okay, if I can't hear or if I can't walk, or in my case, with blind folks, the thing of it is that it's obvious. I mean, if somebody has an emotional issue, or somebody has diabetes, or if somebody has pain, or whatever, they could walk around, nobody would actually know anything. But when you're swinging a
Mm.
cane around, they go, like, that guy's blind, So I mean, it's obvious. There's no fight. There's no faking that. There's no hiding that. So you're seen differently. And I think one of the things you had mentioned, one of the things we talked about, and I don't know if you want to talk about it, it's like the stereotypes and stuff like that. But um, I guess that kind of was a thing, is like I felt like, geez, if I got out with this cane and start swinging around, people are going to think, well, what's wrong with that guy? I mean,
Yeah.
there are stereotypes that go along with it. I mean, people will come up to you and say, "Hey, Brad, how you doing?" It's like, okay, the ears work fine. It's the eyeballs that are the problem here. So you can tone it down a little bit. So so there's that. There's and then people think, oh, that because you can't see, so your hearing gets better. Well, no, it's not really that. It's no different than you're a musician, so when you started out, you just heard a song, but as you learned, you said, "Hey, that's a minor chord. Hey, that's a G seventh chord, or a seventh chord. Maybe you don't know it's a G seven. You say, oh, that's a seventh chord that's being played there. So you kind of just pay attention. You get to know. It's the same thing with blindness. But um, yeah, I think it's just not being afraid of being seen differently, and that I think was a big thing for me. And I know in the blindness training that was a big thing. That's the reason why at the Blind Incorporated there they made you use a long what they call a long white cane. It doesn't fold up. It doesn't collapse. Once you have that baby, you got to walk around where and you can't just hide it, stick it in your back pocket or this. I mean, you are out there and you're telling everybody that you're a blind person by using it. And you have to use it. So, and it's part of that is so that you are seen. So you do become comfortable saying, hey, this is me. This is the way that it is, and it's. Do I like it? No. Am I going to go over it? Yeah. And it's like anything else, is that when we first find out about anything, whether it be good or bad, it's always an accentuated, animated version of it. It's like, if you and I are songwriters, so if one of us had a number one hit, it'd be like, wow, number one, oh yeah, and a year later, it'd be like, oh yeah, I had a number one hit, So it's like, there's always that accentuated, animated thing in the beginning, and that also happens, with the grief stuff. Is like, it's a big thing when it first happens. After a while, the human brain is amazing, and emotions and all that big mix is that it tends to die down, and then we have to kind of deal with it. It's if we don't find ways of altering it or just changing our life, we'll be in a sucky place for a long time. We don't want that. So it doesn't have to be that way. It just really doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, it means that as a blind person, you have grieved in the past. So,
oh, okay.
So
yeah.
things that like,
yeah.
like this and that and that.
Oh yeah, I mean it was everything from a sunset. I mean that's sort of cliche in a way, but it's just looking at a gorgeous sunset at night, looking at my kids' faces, my wife's face, just looking across the room at somebody and just knowing, it's like somebody can just look at you and give you a certain look, like okay, I know what you're talking about. It's just those type of things. Driving was one of the things. Just being, I was never a big reader when I was younger because I'd fall asleep in my face in the book all the time. But I give anything to read right now, or just to play. I mean, I can read. I use Audible and I can read on the computer, but it's still not the same as just grabbing a book, physical book, and of course, most of the people that can do that now, they're on their Kindles anyway. So I told my wife long ago, I says, don't ever treat me like I'm a blind person. In other words, what I mean by that is I don't overcompensate, for it, or just treat me like anybody else. It's like, and fortunately that comes pretty easy for her. I mean, we'll be with friends and she'll say, "Oh, Brad, hey, did you see this?" And they're like, "Ha ha ha!" Friends are laughing. It's like, "What are you laughing at?" Well, you said, "Did you see that to him? He's a blind guy." It's like, "Oh, come on." I mean, it's just an expression, it's just Brad at braddunse.com. And I don't know if you get show notes, you can just throw it in there. And I'd be glad to, if there's something I can do to help, I'm always willing to help somebody get through, because I know what it's like to have been through that. And if we can shortcut that and get things rolling.
Everybody. Okay, if you are still there, I think you can hear me, hopefully. Hopefully that worked out. It was so great to meet Brad. He has an absolute heart of gold. And if you know anyone experiencing vision loss, please, please, please make sure you're on my email list, because I'm going to give out his email. He really means it when he helps people facilitate. He has so many resources that we're going to pass along. So and thank you for also bearing with the fact that we had to kind of chop the interview up a little bit. So that's why there were all those transitions. And I am by no means a transition aficionado or anything. So thank you for rolling with that. But I really do hope that helped. I know it sure helped me, and I hope that it helped you kind of just understand perspective a little bit more. And like he said, they don't want to be treated any differently, but it is also important, especially as we're supporting people in our lives, to just be aware that they have a lot of griefs. So what are your thoughts? What did you think about Brad's interview? If you liked it at all, please make sure you share it with a friend, subscribe, share the video however you want, and then I will see you next week for our last and final show, which is unbelievable, for healing for the holidays. I am so excited, you guys. Please invite your friends. If you know grief groups or anything, please pass out the Facebook invite. Truly, anyone is welcome. It's just like the show. And I would love for you to be able to print off the PDF as well. And then the last thing I say, you guys, if you don't mind just keeping me in your prayers, that would be so, so, so amazing. I've just been really trying to figure out what's next and figuring all of this out. And I'm very excited for the future, but I'm also terrified and I have no idea what it holds. And I've been going through a little bit of an existential crisis lately, very in my head. So if you could just keep me in your prayers, that would be so, so, so appreciated. And again, for each and every one of you who have watched the show or watched all my episodes along the way, words cannot describe how much you mean to me and how grateful I am for you and for all your encouragement. And I just hope that this show has reached people and that we all can be, healing our own wounds and other wounds better because of it. So who knows where the next chapter leads, but I will for sure see you next Tuesday. Bye, everyone. Thanks for being here.